Hello YouTube, long time no heard or seen. Well, if you follow my channel you have seen I have been uploading Elden Ring stuff recently, but let's put that aside. We are now talking about the Queen of Tempesta, as much I want to call her. Queen Anne's Revenge! She has finally arrived at Azur Lane. And I want to confess, I was really guessing she's going to be released sooner or later. And I have to say, I am very happy that Azur Lane finally released Queen Anne's Revenge. But before we go to her entire stats and all, let's talk about her chibi. Because if you take a look at her hat, and then her overall design, why is her PNG hat pointing wrong direction? That's I want to know why. That is my big question. Why is her hat so weirdly put? Like, take into Enterprise hat. It's pointing right direction, but what if you point that cap in the sideways? Now, my wonders and questions are now out of the way. Let's go to meeting the Queen herself. Well, I have to say first, she wasn't cheap to build. In my case, think it about this way. 540 cubes. Only 160 cubes remained until I got her. So she was a very expensive pirate ship to get. But now let's not boast anymore. What is her history? Let's inspect her in this way. Well, Queen Anne's Revenge. She has, in fact, two names. The first is Friends from the La Concorde from 70s. But Blackbeard claimed her, and then she named La Concorde into Queen Anne's Revenge, and she then became Edward Teach's flagship until he had to run him aground and to be abandoned, because how much fame she had. But La Concorde was actually, in her first role, a slave ship. But thanks to her size and speed, it was very suitable vessel for the Blackbeard. And other pirates noticed that slave vessels are surprisingly big, and they are very good pirate vessels, but that's just the other information I read with my side eye. Now, she is beautiful ship. Even her design in here Azur Lane, I say it is fantastically drawn. Good job to the person who drew the Queen Anne's Revenge. And she has skin, and I have to say, it is very interesting, let's just say. And I am very interested how it works. Now, Queen Anne's Revenge, as you can see, she is not fully completed in my account. But how is she actually in the stats? Well, according to Azur Lane Wiki, if you reach her 100 level, her HP is 5387. If you reach level 120, it gets slightly buff, some noticeable buff. It reaches 5900 168, and level 125, 6114. Her firepower is very Tempesta standard, let's just say, because if you try to compare Tempesta into other factions, you are doing it the wrong way. Among the Tempestas, she has rest of Tempesta members this far. She has maximum firepower in 120, 452, and 125, 458. Her reload is not bad. In maximum level, it's 196. Her evasion is 62. Her speed is 18. That's understandable. Her accuracy is 59. That's not bad. But her luck is interestingly 70. And her oil cost, well, oil consumption is 14. Thanks to her rarity, I think. Now her main gun efficiencies. As you can see, she is not complete. But if you fully complete her, her main gun efficiency reaches 115%. But if you have Invitation to Isles de Libertad, did I pronounce it right? When equipped by Tempesta ship, increases that ship's main gun efficiency by 5%. So basically, it can actually reach 120%. She has 2 secondary guns, and everyone is very high. 175% all the way to the end, and she has 2 of them, so she has 4 secondary guns. She is well defended, and she is packing a punch, like according to history. Blackbeard, if I recall now here, she was armed heavily. And I guess it is shown here as well. Tempesta's Queen's firepower, let's just say. She has Augment module that is Evening Rose. Okay, now I have to confess, I didn't know that yet. Well, I guess I have to fully complete her once this is done. I don't recall her construction time, but unfortunately she just popped up. But her skills, let's go with her skills. The Black Mane Tempesta. If this ship is your flagship, increases your Tempesta ship's firepower, accuracy and evasion by 10%. 10%. If she is not your flagship, increases this ship's firepower and evasion by 15%. Now, right at the get-go, you have 2 options to the Queen Anne. You can either have her as a flagship. She improves every Tempesta ship's performance. But if she is not your flagship to your Tempesta fleet, she buffs herself. When this ship fires her main guns, 70% chance to fire level 10 special barrage. If there is another Tempesta ship in your fleet, increases this barrage's activation chance by 30%, meaning it will activate every time she fires her main guns. And second is share the spoils. Now, I don't know what's going on outside, but okay. When this ship finishes loading her main guns, if there is no enemy with plunder target on the battlefield. I have no idea what is the plunder target. Inflicts plunder target to a random enemy. Prioritizes humanoid enemies. Enemies with plunder target have 10% decreased evasion and take 10% more damage from Queen Anne's Revenge. When an enemy with plunder target is sunk, all your Tempesta ships recover 3% of their max HP. Now here's a bit conundrum. Is it conundrum even the right word? Well, you see, what is plunder target? But she inflicts plunder target to random enemy. And when that enemy who has plunder target is sunk, every Tempesta ship recovers 3% of their HP. I have to say, that is not bad. It actually makes Tempesta fleet more survivable if you take into account every Tempesta ship's durability and their healing skills. Combining Queen Anne's Revenge, they are going to survive surprisingly long. But I have slight suspicion here, which I will take into account in a review. Well, my opinions about Tempesta ships. But if you have her as an Augment module, let's see what much is changed. Augment module Certes Spoils Plus. When this ship finishes loading her main guns, if there is enemy with planted target on the battlefield, decrease that enemy's speed by 20% for 5 seconds. If there is no enemy with planted target, inflicts planted target to a random enemy. Prioritizes humanoid enemies. Enemies with planted target have 10% decreased evasion and take 10% more damage from Queen Anne's Revenge. And when enemy with planted target is sunk, all your Tempesta ship recovers 3% of their max HP, and their damage taken is decreased by 3% until the battle ends. This effect can be stacked up to 3 times. Okay, so you really need to have Augment module to Queen Anne's Revenge, because this really improves Tempesta ships' survivability, making them tanky despite their armor being light. But I recall one Tempesta ship had the ability to change their armor type from light to medium. Oh dear. Surprisingly, she is a really flagship type. Now, once you have completed, well, right equipment, let's just say, if you have right equipment, something better than these blue ones over here, I think she is very interesting. I have to say, very interesting flagship, and I say I'm actually looking forward to her performance once she is complete. But I have to say my opinions about her, and I guess it's now time for the review. Voice-over video. See you over there. Hello, voice-over Lucky Man here. And yes, Queen Anne's Revenge and Tempesta ships. What is my opinion about them? Well, let's start with the simple thing. They are frigates. Sailing ships with sails and no anti-aircraft guns. So let's take out the bad things. First, if you want to use Tempesta ships, main campaign is heavily reliant, what makes you want to use ships with the highest anti-air you can actually muster and highest firepower you can actually find. And Tempesta has none of them. Especially submarines. Submarines just appear, start shooting like machine guns, and then they retreat. If we want to use any Tempesta ship in the main campaign that really requires high anti-air, you are literally trying to send your ship girls to the abyss. Which is why I have to say, I like pirate ships, but I have no love towards the main campaign that requires stupid amount of anti-aircraft from the ships that has no anti-air. So, only option I can think about is using Tempesta ships from the lower level requirements. I don't know, is map 14 recommended? But because they require that the light, and Tempesta has no light abilities, so you need to rely on the well, I forgot the name, excuse me. So, on the surface, making full meta fleet sounds like a little bit too much. But if you want to use full meta fleet, I highly recommend War Archives. There is now, in SP, something like special, there is now Tempesta and the Fountain of Youth in War Archives. Last time I checked, that place has no planes available, meaning it is very suitable for full Tempesta fleets, and you can grind old heavy cannon designs from there for your Tempesta ships, meaning that is probably most suitable place for every Tempesta ships. But I guess there is something more, perhaps in a SP side, where you can actually sail around with full Tempesta ships fleets. But other than that, if you want to use them in main campaign, I highly recommend submarine fleet and either 1 or 2 Tempesta ships in your main fleets. In map 14 example, because they have low plane requirement but still anti-aircraft demanded, anti-air some kind of, but high firepower. It requires high firepower. So yeah, that's really very interesting. They were in very. It was Lighthouse. The name, that was the name I was looking for. Map 14 requires Lighthouse. Lighthouse. But anyway, we have now discussed the bad size, where Tempesta is lacking anti-air and firepower, but that is perhaps compensated by high rate of fire. If you notice, Tempesta ships has surprisingly fast long pounders, so they are just machine gunning their way through to the stage. if you know what kind of fleet you're building at. So they really... Tempesta ships brings new way to build Azur Lane. Something like, it's not always a meta fleets. Meta fleets is just the way you want to finish the map or stage. But if you go outside of that comfort zone, it requires more challenging approach. Like if you want to build Tempesta, something like a fleet that contains 2 Tempesta ships, that is something like a personal challenge. How far can you reach in main campaign? And as more and more ships are approaching, main campaign really is big problem. Because thanks to the, as I mentioned again and again, high anti-air requirement. But thanks to Queen Anne's Revenge now approaching, now part of the fleet, if you have her, you can grind with your full hard content the Fountain of Youth, their cannons, and going very pirate fashion way, sailing through the main events. Oh, and perhaps you can actually use full Tempesta fleet in Operation Siren or PvP, but in PvP that's probably just a meme. I am not PvP guy, but I do my best to do some amount of exercises over there. But as in Operation Siren, it still requires some kind of amount of anti-air. Yeah, they are a very interesting spot, I have to say, being a sailing frigate. But as I mentioned, also mentioned that they bring new challenge to your gameplay. What types of fleets you can build and how far can you get with that fleet. And Queen Anne's Revenge is actually a good one because she actually gives 2 sides to her gameplay. She doesn't just heal Tempesta ships thanks to her skill, but also improves other Tempesta ships' survivability if she is flagship, but if she is not, she buffs herself. Meaning she is very important flagship if you take a part like a Nagato, Bismarck, or the Vittorio Veneto perhaps? I don't know much about Italian ships. So yeah, she works just like any other faction flagship. And Queen Elizabeth, let's not forget about her, Queen Elizabeth. And now, is she worth it? If you want new gameplay experience, Queen Anne's Revenge can actually provide that, thanks to her being the flagship of the pirate faction. So, she is worth it, I have to say, as a person who also likes pirate stories, and I have actually grown with the pirate themes toys I had in my youth. She's going to be my top favorites until the end of times. Now then, I say we have now come to the end of this Queen Anne's Revenge review and my personal opinions about her. She's a good ship, yes sir, but main campaign sucks. But in War Archives, she can shine. If you build your fleet correctly, She can be menace. What is your opinions about Queen Elizabeth? Leave comments down below if you want to see more this type of content. Feel free to support the channel by subscribing, excuse me, English, subscribing, and remember to hit the bell icon for future Azur Lane videos, because it will take some time to launch more ship reviews, because I too have my own works. Now then, thank you so much for watching. Remember to plunder. How should I end this video? Well, anyway, let's end it with a classic way. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.